What is up, everyone? Welcome to another weekly news video. We've got a few things to update on from the National that you're going to want to hear, so bear with me as we do talk through them. We'll then talk to COMC at the very end. But we'll start with, what appears to be a loaded pack that, Card Collector 2 Ryan got out at the National. Quite a few people are talking about this. So this is one of those packs that, Topps is handing out that's themed to the National. So they do this every single year. This is a Corbin Carroll 1-of-1 Superfractor that he did hit in auto in that pack. He talks to it as being probably the product hit, maybe rivaling what, a 1-of-1 Otani might go for from this. But essentially, so many people are talking about this being loaded, and it's another case of a, very influential person getting a loaded box. Now, as at the recording of this video, I can't confirm where this pack came from, if it was in fact a pack given to him for free by Topps. My understanding is he bought these. Not sure where exactly from, if it was from a dealer or Topps directly. I just think it's a pretty interesting one, and it goes again to the things we've discussed in the past around these sort of packs popping up, because you almost don't know what to think anymore, right? This sort of thing is happening so often that coincidences go out the window, right? And it's unfortunate because you're now maybe getting instances where people are actually opening packs and are actually getting lucky. But now you've got so many questions happening that it's sort of muddied the waters completely, and it's almost like you don't know what to believe anymore, which is really unfortunate. So if you know a bit more about this, please share it down in the comments below. But I just thought I'd share that with you, because it's almost every week now we're seeing something like this pop up with a big time breaker or a influencer in some capacity getting a box from a sponsor, getting a pack they've bought, and just getting super lucky in hitting something like this. Now, judging by Ryan's reaction, I don't think he was aware of this. We've seen instances in the past where you can genuinely, believe that the person opening the pack might know that something's up. He was really shocked. I don't think he was in on this, if it is in fact a loaded box. But I'm keen to get your thoughts on this down in the comments below, because again, it's not a good look. And when I see this now, I just have to assume the worst. I just look at it, I'm like, okay, well, it's business as usual, right? We just need to sort of forget about it and move on. Now, the next thing I want to talk to relates to Geoff Wilson, and I think is a very interesting thing on the mindset of people within the hobby right now. Now, I put out a video yesterday talking about how there seems to be a shift over the last 6 to 12 months from Geoff and many others within the hobby, where they're now sort of having this, light bulb moment in their heads going off about actually wanting to collect cards they like, right? Actually wanting to collect cards that have stories. And some of the content from Geoff and the content from many others and themes we're seeing on social media go down that same path, when in reality, us as collectors always knew that stuff was collectible, always knew that stuff was sought after. And there's a similar theme here to a video that Geoff put out today regarding some on-card autos of, I think it was 87 and 89 Fleer of Michael Jordan. And he talks to a few interesting things that, again, I think falls into that same bucket that we discussed yesterday. Now, not many people saw that video, so if you haven't, check it out and come back to this one. But he talks about buying, the 87 and 89 Fleer, I believe it was, maybe it was 88 and 89. He talks about buying those because they had on-card autos. And for those of Michael Jordan, you're talking about much smaller populations, right? If you've got 20,000 of the 89 Fleer graded, there's only, I think, 25 that are hand-signed by Michael Jordan. So it's a really small pool, and it's actually a really cool thing to try and chase. The thing that he sort of talks to in this video is him then wanting to take those out of the BGS slabs, because I think they were only authenticated. They may have been card graded as well, but he basically takes them and regrades them with PSA. And he talks to the reason for doing that, number one, for the value, but number two, because PSA actually has a smaller population for those cards. And that's a mindset that I find, utterly insane. And it's not just Geoff. So I'm not picking on Geoff here, right? This is a sentiment that so many people share within this hobby. And I've talked to this before as well around, why you shouldn't be trusting pop reports. Firstly, people talk about pop reports all the time and how they're dumb because people crack things out and resend them in, and they don't notify the first grader that they've cracked it out. So you've basically now got a pop report that you can't trust. But the reason why it's dumb is because people do what Geoff just did, right? They say, well, BGS has more, let's send it to PSA. PSA has less, it's going to be more rare. Okay, but that's a bit silly, because you should be looking at all pop reports in aggregation, right? If you're buying a PSA 5 Michael Jordan that has an autograph on it, you should also be comparing it to the BGS 5 population as well. You should be adding those, populations together. It's insane to me how people sort of, approach the buying and selling of cards and placing value on cards without factoring those things in. That's something that I look into all the time. I just find it crazy that people don't do that, or they try and play games where they're playing pop reports against each other. Like, you guys realize they're the same card, so irrespective of what BGS says or what PSA says, you need to combine them. You need to also look at SGCs and all this other, graders out there. You can't just be saying, well, there's 10 in the BGS slab, there's 5 in the PSA slab, they're the same grade, so the PSA ones are rarer. And again, that's a bit more extreme to what Geoff was talking to in this video, but it's again a theme I'm seeing across the hobby as a whole, and I think it's utterly insane. I want to get your thoughts on this down in the comments below. I'm going to talk to this with a mate of mine who's going to jump on for a live stream next Saturday, I believe it is. We're going to talk to a few things. We're going to talk to serial numbered cards and the population of those, as I've talked to before on this channel. And this guy works in the data science space, in the tech space, so he's quite into the numbers of these sorts of things. And as we've talked to before, when it comes to gold cards and all that sort of stuff, they're so overpopulated that people don't actually know how overpopulated they are. We're also going to talk to things like I just touched on, the actual pop reports for graded cards, because people sort of don't factor all this sort of stuff in when they're paying big money for these cards. These things aren't, as rare as what you think they are. And again, it's the reason why you need to be more targeted to what it is you're buying. So like I said yesterday, you need to be chasing cards with good stories. You need to be chasing actually cards that have deeper meanings, right? A player wore something special on that card, or it's got a match-worn piece of memorabilia that's tied to a match that was really important in that player's career or in that player's season, if you don't know which match it was from specifically, right? There's all these things that make the card more valuable, that make us as the collector want to buy that card over others. And not as much emphasis, in my opinion, is being placed on those as much as it is on things like pop reports and serial numbers, because those two things on face value look very, very rare, but in reality, they're not, right? And not a lot of people actually talk about that, which I think is a really poor thing, and is something I want to talk to, in that live stream, like I said. Now, very quickly before we jump to the COMC news, I want to quickly talk to what I think is a bit interesting for this year's National. Now, I've got huge FOMO for not being there. The thing that I find pretty interesting this year is there's a lot less content. Now, there's more people at the show based on what everyone's saying. Instagram is going off. But when I'm checking out on YouTube and looking through different search terms and all that sort of stuff, you're not seeing as much as what we normally would. And we're also not seeing as much buying either. So I'm curious to see whether that trend continues when, the rest of the content comes out over the next 1 to 2 weeks. But I'm keen to get your thoughts on that as well. It's pretty interesting how the show seems busier than ever, but the buying that we're seeing from, the traditional people that were buying, tens, 20, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cards in the past aren't really doing it this time around, at least from what I've seen. So please share your thoughts on that. Also, just quickly, as you can see in this thumbnail over here, those are Rick Probstein's Jordans. I think he owns 30 of them in PSA 10s. He's actually trying to submit them to BGS to try and get a pristine black label, which is a pretty interesting one. I don't think the results of that have come back yet. I heard a rumor that none of them came back pristine 10s. They've all come back, under, 9.5s and under, which is a pretty interesting move. But if Rick does actually manage to get one of these in a black label, that's going to do crazy things to the Michael Jordan market, in my opinion. But again, if you have some information on that, please let me know. Now, the very last thing I want to talk to is the COMC app. Lots of other people have already talked to this, the likes of Neo Cards and Comics, who did a really good video on it, so please check it out. I just wanted to give my 2 cents very quickly in that I think this is, again, a fantastic thing for the hobby. We talk all the time about how these businesses can create more value for us as customers, right? I work in the audit space. I also work in the tech and innovation space. So, streamlining processes and finding more ways to create value across the value chain is my bread and butter. And when I've seen, the issues we're consistently seeing within this industry, and so many of them have simple fixes, and there's so many inefficiencies within the value chain, i.e. how we go about buying cards, how we go about getting cards graded, all this sort of stuff. It was shocking to me that platforms like COMC, as an example, took this long to get an app together. I think it's a good step in the right direction. They're still very, very slow with a lot of their processing and all that sort of thing. But this stuff is good for the hobby because it shows that people and businesses are still willing to invest big money into this space, and they've got long-term views now, irrespective of what you think about fanatics and all that sort of stuff, about what the hobby might look like in 5, 10, 15 years. Things like this, I think, are really good for the collector at the end of the day. And I hope, we start seeing a lot more of it, to be honest. So that was sort of it for today. Please, share your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know, especially your thoughts on the whole Geoff Wilson comments around playing pop reports against each other. Again, it's nothing new for people to do that. That's been happening for as long as I can remember. I just find it so odd how pervasive that mindset seems to be in the hobby. It seems to be the main theme that people seem to think about these days. And I feel almost like I'm an idiot for taking that step back and saying, well, guys, what are you talking about? All pop reports should be looked at the same. What are you talking about? Yes, it's a numbered serial card out of 10, but how many out of 10 does that player have this year, let alone throughout their entire career? There's all these things that are sort of happening that just don't make much sense to me. Maybe I'm the only one, but please share your thoughts down in the comments below. I've got a huge FOMO from the National. I'm going to really try and be there next year. It's just pretty hard coming all the way from Australia, but hopefully I can be there because it looks like a heck of a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.